Garrett Sullivan's hands were shaking, not from the cold, not from the bullet buried in his side, but from the woman dying on the cabin floor. Snow howled against the walls. Blood pooled beneath her. She grabbed his wrist with fingers like ice and pulled him close enough to see the terror in her eyes. "Save my baby," she whispered. "I don't care what happens to me. Just save him." He'd killed men. He'd buried friends. But nothing had prepared him for this. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe to our channel and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. 6 miles back, a bullet had torn through Garrett Sullivan's side. He didn't remember falling off his horse, didn't remember climbing back on. All he knew was the blood freezing against his shirt, and the 3 riders somewhere behind him getting closer with every passing minute. "Move!" he growled at his horse. "Move, damn you!" The animal stumbled. Garrett grabbed its mane, hauling himself upright through sheer stubbornness. His vision blurred. The Wyoming wilderness stretched endless and white in every direction. Then smoke, thin and gray against the sky. A cabin. Garrett drew his revolver. Could be trappers. Could be outlaws. Could be the men hunting him waiting to finish what they'd started. Didn't matter. He'd freeze to death in an hour without shelter. He dismounted badly, one leg buckling under his weight. Pain shot through his side like fire. He pressed his palm against the wound and staggered toward the door. That's when he heard it. A scream. Raw. Desperate. Female. Garrett kicked the door open. A woman lay on the floor. Her back arched, her hands clawing at her swollen belly. Sweat and tears streaked her face. Blood soaked the blanket beneath her. She saw him and screamed again, this time in terror. "No!" She tried to crawl backward, one arm wrapped around her stomach. "Please, please don't." "Easy." Garrett holstered his gun fast. "I ain't gonna hurt you." "Get out." Her voice cracked. "Get out of my cabin." "Ma'am, I can see your—" "I said, get out." Another contraction hit her. She doubled over, a sound tearing from her throat that wasn't quite human. When it passed, she was gasping, trembling, too weak to fight him anymore. Garrett crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside her. "What's your name?" he demanded. She stared at him wild-eyed. "Your name," he repeated. "Tell me." "Clara." The word came out broken. "Clara Ashford." "Clara, I'm Garrett. I've delivered calves and foals and one time a litter of puppies in a thunderstorm. I ain't never delivered a baby, but I'm all you got right now." He met her eyes. "You understand me?" She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Good. Now tell me how long you've been laboring." Since yesterday morning." Her breath hitched. "Something's wrong. I can feel it. The baby should be here by now." Yesterday morning. Garrett's gut clenched. That was too long. Way too long. "Where's your husband?" Clara's face crumpled. "Dead." She choked on the word. "Shot dead 3 weeks ago, right in front of me. They made me watch. They made me—" She couldn't finish. Garrett's jaw tightened. He knew the kind of men who did things like that. Had hunted some of them himself back when hunting men was his trade. "I'm sorry," he said. "But right now I need you to focus. Can you do that? Can you focus on this baby?" Clara grabbed the front of his shirt, pulling him close. Her grip was stronger than he expected. "If you have to choose," she whispered fiercely, "you choose him. You hear me? You save my son. Promise me." "I ain't promising that." "Promise me." "No." Garrett covered her hand with his. "Because I ain't gonna let either of you die. Not tonight. Not while I'm breathing." Something shifted in her eyes. Not trust, not yet, but something close. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay." Garrett worked fast. He built up the fire with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Boiled water. Tore his last clean shirt into strips. His side screamed with every movement, blood seeping through the makeshift bandage he'd tied somewhere between the creek and here. Didn't matter. None of it mattered except this woman and this baby. "I need to check," he told her. "See how close you are." Clara nodded, her face gray with exhaustion. What Garrett saw made his stomach drop. "The head's right there," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Clara, your baby's coming now. Next pain you feel, I need you to push. Hard as you can." "I've been pushing." Tears streamed down her face. "I've been pushing for hours. I can't, I'm so tired." "Hey." Garrett gripped her chin, forcing her to look at him. "You crossed half this territory alone, pregnant with men trying to kill you. You found this cabin. You survived. You telling me you're gonna quit now when your boy's this close to meeting his mama?" Fire flickered in Clara's eyes. "Good. Don't you dare tell me what I can't do," she spat. "Then prove me wrong." The contraction came. Clara bore down with a scream that rattled the cabin walls. Garrett braced himself ready, but the baby didn't come. "Again," he ordered. "Keep going. Don't stop." Clara pushed until her face went purple, until veins stood out on her neck and forehead. The baby's head emerged an inch, then stopped. "It's stuck!" Clara's voice pitched toward hysteria. "Oh God, it's stuck! It's stuck! Listen to me." Garrett kept his tone hard, commanding. "Shoulders are caught. I've seen this in foals. I'm gonna have to turn him. It's gonna hurt like hell, but I need you to breathe through it. You hear me? Breathe." He didn't wait for her answer. His hands moved with a certainty he didn't feel, easing one tiny shoulder free, then the other. Clara screamed a sound that would haunt his dreams for years. And then suddenly the baby slid into his hands. Small, slippery, blue, silent. "Why isn't he crying?" Clara pushed herself up on her elbows. Garrett, why isn't he?" Garrett turned the baby over, cleared its mouth, rubbed its back. Nothing. "Come on," he muttered. "Come on, come on, come on." He rubbed harder, tilted the baby's head back, breathed a tiny puff of air into its lungs. Nothing. Clara was sobbing now, reaching for her child. "Give him to me. Give him to me. Let me hold him." "Not yet." Garrett's hands moved on instinct, doing things he'd never been taught, just praying something would work. "Come on, little one. Your mama's waiting. Don't you quit on her." He rubbed the baby's chest. Once. Twice. A cough. A gasp. And then the most beautiful goddamn sound Garrett Sullivan had ever heard. A wail. Thin and angry and absolutely alive. "There you go." His voice cracked. "There you go, fighter." He wrapped the baby in the cleanest cloth he could find and placed him on Clara's chest. She clutched her son like he might disappear, crying and laughing and saying his name over and over. "Samuel. Samuel. My sweet boy. My Samuel." Garrett sat back. His hands were covered in blood, hers the baby's, his own. His whole body shook. The adrenaline was fading fast, and the pain in his side had become a roar. He tried to stand. His legs gave out. "Garrett." Clara's voice came from somewhere far away. "You're bleeding. There's so much blood." "I'm fine," he managed. "You're lying." Probably. Darkness crept into the edges of his vision. He fought it, but he was losing. 3 days without sleep. 6 miles with a bullet in his gut. And now this, delivering a baby in a blizzard, like some kind of half-dead miracle worker. "Stay awake." Clara's hand gripped his arm. "Garrett, damn you, stay awake." "Bossy," he mumbled. "You're real bossy, you know that. And you're bleeding to death on my floor. We're even." He tried to laugh. It came out as a cough. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was Clara's face, pale, terrified, but steel hard with determination. She wasn't going to let him die. Stubborn woman. Garrett woke to pain and firelight. He was lying on the floor near the hearth, stripped to the waist, his side wrapped in fresh bandages. Clara sat beside him, Samuel sleeping in the crook of her arm. She looked like hell, exhausted, pale, her hair matted with sweat, but her eyes were sharp. "You're awake," she said. "Good. I was starting to think I'd have to drag your body outside." Garrett tried to sit up. Bad idea. He fell back with a groan. "The bullet's out," Clara informed him. "You're lucky it didn't hit anything vital. Another inch to the left and we wouldn't be having this conversation." "You did that." He looked at the neat bandaging. "While holding a newborn. My father was a doctor. I assisted him for 3 years before I married." Clara's expression flickered, pain quickly suppressed. "He taught me well." "Guess I owe you my life." "Guess you do." She didn't smile. "Which means we're not even anymore. You saved me and Samuel. I saved you. Now we're just two strangers stuck in a cabin in a blizzard with no supplies and men hunting at least one of us." Garrett processed this. "You heard me, outside, talking to my horse. You said you weren't dying out here, that someone was chasing you." Clara's gaze was steady. Who? He could lie, should lie. This woman had enough problems without adding his. But she'd just pulled a bullet out of his side. She deserved truth. 3 years ago, he said slowly. I was a bounty hunter. Good one too. Then I took a job that went wrong. Man I was hunting had a brother, a kid barely 17. The kid came at me with a knife. I didn't know who he was, didn't know until after. He paused, swallowed. The man I was hunting, he was a senator's nephew. When they found his brother dead, and me standing over the body, they didn't ask questions. Just put a price on my head. $500 dead or alive. Clara was quiet for a long moment. Did you do it? She finally asked. Did you kill the boy? Yes. The word tasted like ash. I didn't mean to, but I did. Self-defense. Doesn't matter what it was. He's still dead. Another silence. Samuel made a small sound, and Clara adjusted him automatically, her attention never leaving Garrett's face. The men hunting you, she said. They're bounty hunters. Worse. Senator's private men. They ain't interested in bringing me in for trial. They want me dead and buried where no one will find me. How many? 3, maybe more. Clara nodded slowly like she was filing this information away for later use. I should leave, Garrett said. Soon as I can ride. I've put you in danger just being here. You can't ride. You can barely sit up. I'll manage. You'll die. Clara's voice was flat. And then those men will come here looking for you, find me and Samuel instead, and decide we're loose ends. Is that what you want? Garrett hadn't thought of that. So, here's what's going to happen, Clara continued. You're going to rest until you can actually move without falling over. Then we're both going to figure out how to get somewhere safe. Together. You don't even know me. You delivered my baby. Something softened in her expression just for a moment. You talked me through the worst night of my life. You could have left when you saw me. Any other man would have. I ain't any other man. No. Clara studied him with those sharp, intelligent eyes. I'm beginning to see that. A howl cut through the night, distant but unmistakable. Wolves. Garrett's hand went to his hip. His gun wasn't there. Relax. Clara nodded toward the table. I unloaded it while you were unconscious. Seemed prudent not knowing what kind of man you were. And now? She rose carefully, wincing, and retrieved his revolver. For a moment she stood there, the weapon in one hand and her son in the other, looking at Garrett with an expression he couldn't read. Then she handed him the gun, loaded. Now I know. Another howl closer this time, then another, a pack circling. They smell the blood, Garrett said. Mine, yours, the afterbirth. We need to keep the fire high and stay inside. They won't try to come in. Not if we give them no reason. He checked the revolver's chambers. but just in case you know how to shoot." Clara's laugh was bitter. "My husband tried to teach me. I wasn't very good." "Then stay behind me if they break in." He caught her eye. "And if I tell you to run, you take Samuel and you run. Don't look back." "I'm getting tired of men telling me to run. And I'm tired of seeing people die because they didn't listen. So humor me." They stared at each other, two stubborn people used to having the last word. Clara broke first. Sort of. "Fine. But if you die, I'm taking your horse." "Fair enough." The wolves circled for another hour. Garrett stayed alert, gun in hand, while Clara fed Samuel and tried to rest. He watched them in the firelight, mother and son fragile and fierce in equal measure, and felt something shift in his chest. He'd spent 3 years running, 3 years caring about nothing but survival. When had that changed? "You're staring," Clara said without opening her eyes. "Sorry." "Don't be. Just wondering what you're thinking." Garrett considered lying, decided against it. "I'm thinking I should have ridden past this cabin. Would have been smarter, safer." "But you didn't." "No." He paused. "I didn't." Clara opened her eyes, then meeting his gaze with an intensity that caught him off guard. "Thomas, my husband, he was a schoolteacher, gentle, kind, believed the best in everyone." Her voice was steady, but her hands tightened on Samuel. "He had no business on the frontier. I knew that. But I followed him anyway because I loved him, and I thought love was enough." "It wasn't. Love doesn't stop bullets." She looked down at her son. "He died trying to protect me. The last thing he said was run. So I ran, and I kept running until I couldn't anymore." Garrett understood that kind of running, the kind where you're not moving toward anything, just away from everything. "What happened to the men who killed him?" "I don't know." Clara's jaw tightened. "I didn't see their faces. Just their leader's voice, cold calm, asking Thomas where the money was. Thomas kept saying he didn't know what they were talking about. They shot him anyway." "Money." "I've been trying to figure that out for 3 weeks. Thomas had nothing. We had nothing. Just a wagon, 2 horses, and dreams of Oregon." She shook her head. "They took everything except me. Left me for dead in a ditch." "But you survived." "I survived." Clara's hand moved absently to her belly, still soft, still recovering from the life it had carried. "I crawled out of that ditch, walked until I found a farmhouse, begged for food and shelter. Did the same thing the next day, and the next, and now I'm here. With a newborn and a bleeding outlaw for company. Life's funny that way." The fire crackled. Outside, the wolves had gone quiet, moved on, probably to easier prey. Garrett relaxed slightly, though his hand stayed near his gun. "I'm gonna find them," he said. "The men who killed your husband, when this is over." Clara looked at him sharply. "Why?" "Because nobody should die like that. And nobody should have to run the way you've been running." He met her eyes. "You've got a son now. He deserves better than a life spent looking over his shoulder." "And what do you deserve, Garrett Sullivan?" The question hit harder than he expected. "Don't matter what I deserve. Matters what I can do. And I can do this." Clara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd heard it. "You're not what I expected when you kicked down that door." "What did you expect?" "Another man trying to take something from me." She paused. "Instead, you gave me something. My son's life. Maybe my own." "I didn't do anything special. Any decent person would have—" "No." Clara cut him off. "They wouldn't have. I've met plenty of people since Thomas died. Good people, some of them. But not one of them would have done what you did tonight." Garrett didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Samuel began to fuss. Clara murmured to him, shifting to feed him, and Garrett looked away, giving her privacy, trying not to think about the strange warmth spreading through his chest. He'd known this woman for a few hours. She'd saved his life, and he'd saved hers. That was all. It didn't mean anything. But watching her with her son, seeing the tenderness beneath all that steel, Garrett couldn't help wondering what it would be like to have something worth protecting again. Something worth staying for. He must have dozed because the next thing he knew, gray light was filtering through the cabin's single window. Dawn. Clara was asleep in the chair Samuel nestled against her chest. The fire had burned low. Garrett forced himself to sit up slowly, carefully, and added more wood. His side throbbed, but the bleeding had stopped. Clara's stitching had held. He'd live assuming the senator's men didn't find him first. He moved to the window, peering through a crack in the shutters. His blood froze. 3 horses at the tree line. 3 men dismounting, one of them studying the snow-covered ground where Garrett's tracks still showed. Red bandana around his neck. Face like a hatchet. Cole Braddock, the senator's favorite killer. Garrett grabbed his gun and shook Clara awake. "Get up, now!" Her eyes flew open. "What?" "They found me. 3 men edge of the clearing. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they reach the door." Clara was on her feet instantly, clutching Samuel. No panic, no tears, just that same hard determination he'd seen during the birth. "Is there another way out?" "No." Garrett was already checking his ammunition. 6 bullets, 3 men. Not great odds, especially in his condition. "There's a root cellar under the floor behind the stove. Trapdoors hidden by that rug. You get in there with Samuel, you stay quiet. You don't come out no matter what you hear." "Garrett." "I mean it, Clara. No matter what." She grabbed his arm, her grip fierce. "If you die, those men will tear this cabin apart looking for whatever they think is here. They'll find us." "Then I won't die." "That's not a plan. It's the only one I got." A voice from outside. "Sullivan. We know you're in there. Come on out and maybe we won't burn the whole place down." Clara's face went white. Garrett cupped her cheek, a brief touch, rougher than he intended. "You're strong," he said quietly. "Strongest woman I ever met. Whatever happens, you get that boy somewhere safe. You build him a life. You hear me?" Tears spilled down her cheeks, but her voice was steady. "I hear you." "Good." He released her. "Now go." Clara didn't move. "Clara." "I'm going." She rose on her toes and kissed his cheek, quick, fierce. "Don't you dare die, Garrett Sullivan. You still owe me." Then she was gone, slipping behind the stove with Samuel the trapdoor closing silently behind her. Garrett turned toward the door. His hands weren't shaking anymore. "Sullivan." Cole Braddock's voice again closer now. "Last chance. Don't make us come in there." Garrett cocked his revolver. "Come and get me," he muttered. Then he opened the door and stepped into the snow. Cole Braddock stood 20 feet from the cabin, flanked by 2 men Garrett didn't recognize. All 3 had their hands near their guns. All 3 were smiling like wolves who'd cornered their prey. "Well, well." Cole tilted his head, studying Garrett with cold amusement. "You look like hell, Sullivan. That bullet finally catching up with you. I've had worse." Garrett kept his revolver low but ready. "Long way from Kansas, Cole. Senator must be paying you well." $500. Cole shrugged. "Would have been easier if you'd just died in that ravine like you were supposed to." "Sorry to disappoint." The man on Cole's left young, twitchy hand, hovering over his holster, spoke up. "Let's just shoot him and get it done. I'm freezing my ass off out here." "Patience, Jimmy." Cole's eyes never left Garrett. "I want to enjoy this. 3 years I've been chasing this son of a bitch. 3 years of cold trails and dead ends." He stepped closer. "You know what the senator said when his nephew died? Said he'd pay double to the man who brought him your head. Not your body, your head." "Sounds like him." "So here's how this is gonna go." Cole drew his pistol slowly, deliberately. "You drop that gun, get on your knees, and I'll make it quick. 1 bullet back of the skull. You won't feel a thing. And if I don't, then we take our time." Cole's smile widened. And we start with whoever's hiding in that cabin behind you." Garrett's blood turned to ice. "Ain't nobody in there." "That's so." Cole nodded toward the snow. "Funny. Looks like two sets of tracks leading to that door. Yours and someone smaller. Lighter." His eyes glittered. "Woman, maybe. You're seeing things." "Jimmy." Cole didn't look away from Garrett. "Go check." The young one started forward. Garrett raised his gun. "Take one more step and I put a hole in your chest." Jimmy froze. 6 bullets, Cole observed. 3 of us. Even if you're fast, and I know you're fast, you ain't taking all of us down before one of us gets you. Or whoever's in that cabin. Maybe, maybe not. Garrett's finger tightened on the trigger. "You willing to bet your life on it?" Silence stretched between them. The wind howled. Snow swirled around their boots. Then Cole laughed. "Always did like you, Sullivan. Even when you were hunting the same marks I was." He holstered his gun. "Tell you what, I'm feeling generous. You come with us quiet and we leave the cabin alone. Don't even look inside. Whoever's in there can freeze or starve or whatever ain't my concern. All I want is you. And I'm supposed to trust you." "No, but you ain't got a choice." Garrett's mind raced. He was wounded, exhausted, outgunned. Even if he dropped all 3, the noise would bring more. And Clara was down there in that root cellar with a newborn baby helpless depending on him. He thought about her face when she'd kissed his cheek. The steel in her voice when she'd told him not to die. "All right." He lowered his gun slowly. "All right, Cole, you win." Cole's grin turned triumphant. "Smart man. Jimmy, get his weapon." Jimmy approached cautiously, reaching for Garrett's revolver. Garrett moved. He grabbed Jimmy's wrist, yanked him forward, and put a bullet through the third man's shoulder before anyone could blink. Jimmy screamed as Garrett twisted his arm, using him as a shield. Cole's shot went wide, punching into Jimmy's back instead. "Son of a bitch!" Cole fired again. Garrett felt the bullet graze his ribs, white-hot pain, but not fatal. He shoved Jimmy's body toward Cole and ran, not away from the cabin, toward it. He burst through the door, slammed it shut, and threw the heavy bar across. Bullets thudded into the wood behind him. "Clara!" He crossed to the stove, yanking up the trap door. "We gotta move, now!" She was already climbing out. Samuel clutched to her chest. "I heard gunshots. How many?" "1 dead, 1 wounded. Cole's still standing." "Who's Cole?" "Man who's gonna kill us both if we don't get out of here." Garrett grabbed his saddlebag from the corner, ignoring the fresh blood soaking through his shirt. "There's a back window. Small, but you can fit through. My horse is in the lean-to. You take him and ride east. Don't stop until you reach—" "I'm not leaving you." "Clara." "I said no." Her eyes blazed. "You can barely stand. You think I'm going to ride off and leave you to die. You've got a baby. I know what I've got." Her voice cracked. "I know exactly what I've got, Garrett, and I'm not losing anyone else. Not today. Not ever again." A bullet shattered the window. Clara screamed, shielding Samuel with her body. Garrett pulled her down, covering them both. "Sullivan." Cole's voice raw with fury. "You just killed Jimmy. You hear me? You killed him." "He killed himself when he signed on with you," Garrett shouted back. "I'm gonna burn this cabin down. I'm gonna burn it with you inside and listen to you scream." Clara's hand found Garrett's in the darkness. Her fingers were trembling, but her grip was strong. "Is there another way out?" she whispered. "The window's too exposed now. He'll pick us off the second we try." Garrett's mind raced. "The root cellar. Does it go anywhere?" "I don't know. It's just a hole in the ground." "Then we wait him out. He's wounded and his partner's dead. He'll have to—" The smell hit him first. Smoke. Cole wasn't bluffing. "He's burning us out." Garrett pulled Clara toward the cellar. "Get down there. Stay low. The smoke won't reach you as fast." "What about you?" "I'm gonna buy us time." Garrett. He kissed her. It wasn't planned, wasn't thought through, just happened, his mouth on hers, desperate and brief, and tasting like blood and smoke. When he pulled back, Clara's eyes were wide. "Stay alive," he said. "Both of you." Then he was moving, grabbing a blanket to wrap around his arm, kicking open the door before the flames could spread. Cole stood 30 feet away, torch in one hand, gun in the other. His wounded partner, the one Garrett had shot in the shoulder, was slumped against a tree, barely conscious. "There you are." Cole raised his pistol. "Ready to die, Sullivan?" "Not particularly." Garrett fired. The shot caught Cole in the thigh. He went down with a howl, dropping the torch into the snow, where it sputtered and died. But he didn't drop his gun. The return shot hit Garrett in the arm, his shooting arm. The revolver flew from his grip. He stumbled, fell, and Cole was on him in seconds, pistol pressed against his forehead. "Should have taken my offer," Cole snarled. Blood poured from his leg, but his hand was steady. "Now you get to watch that cabin burn before I put a bullet in your brain." "The cabin ain't burning." Garrett's voice was calm, despite the gun in his face. "Your torch went out." "I'll light another one." "With what? You can barely stand. Your leg's bleeding out. Your partner's dying against that tree." Garrett met Cole's eyes. "Face it. You're done." Cole's finger tightened on the trigger. Then a voice, female fierce, rang out from behind him. "Drop the gun!" Cole twisted. Clara stood in the cabin doorway, Garrett's fallen revolver in both hands, aimed directly at Cole's head. Her arms were shaking, her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. "Lady, you don't want to do this," Cole said. "You're right, I don't." Clara's voice didn't waver. "But I will. Drop it." "You ever killed a man before?" "No." "Then you ain't gonna start now." Cole turned the gun toward her. "Put that down before—" Clara fired. The bullet caught Cole in the chest. He stared at her, eyes wide with disbelief, then crumpled into the snow. Silence. Clara stood frozen, the gun still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. "Clara." Garrett pushed himself up, fighting through the pain. "Clara, it's over. Put the gun down." She didn't move. "Clara." He reached her gently, prying the weapon from her fingers. "It's okay. You're okay. You did what you had to." "I killed him." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I killed a man. You saved my life." "I killed—" She broke off, a sob tearing from her throat. Oh, God, I killed him." Garrett pulled her against his chest, holding her as she shook. Somewhere nearby, Samuel began to cry, a thin, frightened wail that cut through the winter air. "You did good," Garrett murmured against her hair. "You hear me? You did good. You're alive. Samuel's alive. That's all that matters. He was going to shoot you. I know. I couldn't let him. I couldn't—" She pulled back, looking up at him with tear-streaked cheeks. "When you kissed me. Shouldn't have done that. Don't you dare apologize." Her voice cracked. "Don't you dare." They stared at each other, two people standing in a blood-soaked clearing, surrounded by death, holding on to each other, like the world might end if they let go. Then Clara took a shuddering breath. "We need to move. You're bleeding again." "I noticed. There's a farmstead east of here. The Bergmans. I passed it on my way to this cabin. They offered me shelter." She wiped her face with her sleeve. "Can you ride?" "I can try." Clara nodded once, that steel returning to her spine. "Then let's go, before anyone comes looking for these men." They worked fast, despite their injuries. Garrett checked Cole's partner, dead, bled out from the shoulder wound, and took what supplies he could find. 2 horses stood tied near the trees. He saddled the strongest one while Clara retrieved Samuel from the cellar. When she emerged, the baby had quieted, nestled against her chest. She looked at the bodies in the snow, then looked away. "Clara." Garrett touched her arm. "You gonna be all right?" "No." She met his eyes. "But I'll survive. That's what I do." He helped her onto the horse, then mounted behind her, wrapping one arm around her waist to keep them both steady. His wounded arm screamed in protest. He ignored it. "East?" he asked. "East. Maybe 5 miles." They rode. The snow had stopped falling, but the cold bit deep. Garrett felt his wounds stiffening, felt exhaustion pulling at the edges of his consciousness. He focused on Clara's warmth against his chest, on Samuel's soft breathing, on putting 1 mile behind them at a time. "Garrett." Clara's voice broke the silence after nearly an hour. "Yeah. That man, Cole. He said you killed someone. A boy." Garrett's jaw tightened. "I did." "Tell me what happened. The real story." He didn't want her to know what kind of man he really was. But she'd just killed someone to save him. She deserved the truth. "His name was Daniel," Garrett said quietly. "Daniel Marsh, 17 years old. His brother William was a murderer, killed 3 women in Kansas City before he ran. Senator posted a bounty. I tracked William to a farmhouse outside Dodge City." He paused, the memory sharp and painful. "I didn't know Daniel was there. Didn't know William had a brother at all. When I kicked down the door, William went for his gun. I shot him. Then something hit me from behind a shovel. I turned and fired without thinking." His voice roughened. It was Daniel. He was just trying to protect his brother. Didn't even have a gun. Just a shovel. Clara was silent. "The senator's sister was William's wife," Garrett continued. "When she found out I'd killed her brother-in-law, she demanded blood. Didn't matter that William was a murderer. Didn't matter that Daniel attacked me first. All that mattered was that I'd killed the nephew of a powerful man. So they made you the villain. They made me whatever they needed me to be." Garrett's arm tightened around her waist. "I've done bad things, Clara. Killed men who maybe didn't deserve killing. Lived rough, lived mean. But Daniel," he swallowed. "Daniel, I regret. You didn't mean to kill him. Don't matter what I meant. He's still dead." Clara turned slightly, looking up at him over her shoulder. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you've been punishing yourself for 3 years. Running, hiding, refusing to let anyone close." Her eyes softened. "I think you've been waiting for someone to finally catch you, because you believe you deserve it." Garrett didn't answer. Couldn't. "Well, I'm not going to let that happen," Clara said firmly. "You saved my son. You saved me. Whatever you did before, that's the past. You don't get to throw away your future because of a mistake you can't undo. It ain't that simple. Nothing ever is." She faced forward again. "But we keep going anyway. That's all any of us can do." They rode in silence after that, but something had shifted between them. An understanding. An acceptance. Whatever they were to each other now, it was more than strangers, more than survivor and rescuer. It felt like the beginning of something. Or maybe just the middle of something that had started the moment Garrett kicked down that cabin door. The Bergman farmstead appeared just as the sun was setting, a solid house. A barn smoke rising from the chimney. Garrett pulled the horse to a stop at the edge of the property. "You sure about this?" he asked. "Mrs. Bergman practically begged me to stay when I passed through. She has 6 children. She'll understand." Clara paused. "But they'll ask questions. About you. About us. What do you want to tell them?" Clara was quiet for a moment. Then, the truth. That you found me in labor. That you delivered my baby. That you saved our lives. She glanced back at him. "Is that all right? And the dead men back at the cabin?" Self-defense. Anyone with sense can see that. Garrett wasn't sure the law would see it that way, but he was too tired to argue. They approached the farmhouse slowly. A dog barked. Children's faces appeared in windows. Then the door flew open and a woman emerged, tall, sturdy, with kind eyes and flour-dusted hands. "Mrs. Ashford." The woman's face shifted from surprise to concern as she took in Clara's condition. My God, child, what happened to you? Mrs. Bergman. Clara's voice cracked with relief. I had the baby. This man, Garrett, he helped me. But we were attacked. He's hurt. We both need... Inside, both of you, now. Mrs. Bergman was already calling over her shoulder. Jonas Eric, help this man off his horse before he falls off. Strong hands lifted Garrett down. He tried to protest, but his legs wouldn't hold him. Two boys, teenagers broad-shouldered like their mother, practically carried him into the house. The warmth hit him like a wall. A fire crackled in a stone hearth. Children scattered to make room. Mrs. Bergman was already clearing a table, ordering someone to fetch water and clean cloth. Set him here. She pointed to a sturdy chair. Careful with that arm, it's bleeding through the bandage. Ma'am, I don't want to impose... Hush. Mrs. Bergman silenced Garrett with a look. You brought this girl and her baby to my door alive. That earns you a place at my table, and whatever doctoring I can manage. Clara appeared at his side, Samuel still in her arms. Let her help you, Garrett, please. He looked at her exhausted, blood-stained, but more beautiful than anyone had a right to be after what she'd been through. All right, he said quietly. All right. Mrs. Bergman worked with efficient hands, cutting away Garrett's ruined shirt, cleaning his wounds, stitching where needed. Her questions were few and practical. How did this happen? When did the bleeding start? Any signs of fever? She didn't ask about the bullet holes. Didn't ask why a stranger was traveling with a woman who'd just given birth. Just fixed what needed fixing and kept her thoughts to herself. You'll live, she finally announced, tying off the last bandage. But you need rest, real rest. I won't have you dying in my house, too much paperwork. Despite everything, Garrett almost laughed. Yes, ma'am. Good. Mrs. Bergman turned to Clara, her expression softening. Now let me see that baby. Clara handed Samuel over with obvious reluctance. Mrs. Bergman examined him with practiced eyes, checking his color, his breathing, the way he responded to touch. Healthy, she declared. Strong lungs on this one. He'll be a handful when he's older. She returned the baby to Clara's arms. You did well, Mama. Both of you. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for everything. Thank me by eating something and sleeping for at least 6 hours. Mrs. Bergman was already moving toward the kitchen. Ingrid, make up the guest room and bring some of that stew. Within an hour, Garrett found himself in a small but clean bedroom, his wounds dressed, a bowl of stew warming his stomach. Clara sat in a chair by the window, nursing Samuel, her face soft in the lamplight. She's something else, Garrett observed. Mrs. Bergman. She reminds me of my grandmother. Same no-nonsense attitude. Clara smiled faintly. I should have stayed here when she offered. Would have saved us both a lot of trouble. Then we never would have met. The words hung in the air between them. Clara looked at him, really looked, and something passed between them that neither could name. Garrett, she said slowly. What happens now? What do you mean? I mean... She adjusted Samuel, her brow furrowing. We can't stay here forever. Those men might have friends. Someone might come looking. And you're still wanted, which means anywhere you go there's danger. I know. So what do we do? Garrett considered the question. A week ago, he'd have had an easy answer: keep running, keep moving, stay alone. But that was before Clara. Before Samuel, before he'd remembered what it felt like to have something worth fighting for. There's a town, he said finally. Independence, about 2 days' ride from here. Big enough to disappear and small enough that strangers get noticed before they cause trouble. He paused. I know a man there. Used to ride with him before the war. He might be able to help. New papers, new name, a fresh start. For you. For both of us. Garrett met her eyes. If you want. Clara's breath caught. You're asking me to come with you. I'm asking if you want to. It's your choice, Clara. Always has been. She was quiet for a long moment, looking down at Samuel. When she spoke, her voice was thick. Thomas and I were going to Oregon. It was his dream, a little schoolhouse, a community, a place to raise children. She stroked her son's cheek. But Thomas is gone, and I don't think I can face that dream alone. Not anymore. You don't have to face anything alone. Is that a promise? Garrett thought about all the promises he'd made and broken, all the people he'd let down, all the reasons he had no right to offer this woman anything. Then he thought about the way she'd looked at him when he'd placed Samuel in her arms. The way she'd pulled a bullet from his side without flinching. The way she'd shot a man to save his life. Yeah, he said quietly. That's a promise. Clara's smile was like sunrise after a long winter. Then I'll come with you. To Independence. To wherever you go. She reached out her fingers, brushing his. But you have to promise me one more thing. Name it. No more running. Her eyes held his. Whatever comes next, we face it together. No more disappearing in the night. No more noble sacrifices. Together. Garrett thought about Cole Braddock bleeding out in the snow. About the senator's men who would keep coming until someone put a stop to it. About all the ways this could go wrong. Then he looked at Clara, this woman who'd walked through hell and come out the other side still fighting, still hoping, still alive. Together, he agreed. Outside, the night deepened. The Bergman children's laughter drifted through the walls. Samuel made a soft, contented sound against his mother's chest. And for the first time in 3 years, Garrett Sullivan felt something that might have been peace. It wouldn't last. He knew that. The senator's reach was long, and dead men had a way of being remembered. Somewhere out there more hunters were gathering, more trouble was brewing. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, he was alive. Clara was alive. Samuel was alive. Tonight, that was enough. He closed his eyes, letting exhaustion finally claim him. His last thought before sleep took him was of Clara's face in the firelight, fierce and tender and unbreakable. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. He'd promised. And Garrett Sullivan was done breaking promises. 3 days passed at the Bergman farmstead. 3 days of healing, of warmth, of something Garrett hadn't felt in years: safety. Mrs. Bergman fed them until they couldn't eat anymore. Her husband Jonas, a quiet man with kind eyes, asked no questions and expected no explanations. Their children treated Samuel like a new toy, fighting over who got to hold him while Clara rested. It was almost peaceful. Almost. "You're thinking too loud," Clara said on the 4th morning, watching Garrett pace near the window. "I can hear it from across the room. Something ain't right. You've said that every day since we arrived. And I've been right every day." Garrett turned to face her. Cole Braddock didn't ride alone. He had connections, people who'll notice when he doesn't come back. Clara adjusted Samuel in her arms. "So, what do you want to do?" "Run. I want to keep you safe." "Then stop pacing and come sit down. You're making me nervous." He didn't sit. Instead, he moved closer, lowering his voice. "We should leave tomorrow. Head for Independence while we still can. You can barely lift your arm." "I can ride." "And if we're attacked on the road," Clara's eyes flashed, "you'll fight them off one-handed while I hold a newborn." "Clara, no." She stood careful not to wake Samuel. "You promised me we'd face things together. That means you don't get to make decisions alone. We wait until you're healed. Another week, maybe 2. We might not have 2 weeks. Then we'll deal with that when it comes." They stared at each other, two stubborn people who'd been through hell and still couldn't agree on how to avoid going back. The farmhouse door opened. Eric, the eldest Bergman boy, stepped inside, his face troubled. "Mr. Sullivan, there's a man at the gate. Says he's looking for someone." Garrett's hand went to his hip. His gun wasn't there. Mrs. Bergman had insisted he leave it by the door while inside. "What kind of man?" "Well-dressed," City clothes. Got a real nice horse. Eric shifted uncomfortably. He asked if we'd seen a woman traveling alone, pregnant. Clara's face went white. What did you tell him? Garrett kept his voice steady. Nothing yet. Pa sent me to fetch you first. Good boy. Garrett grabbed his revolver from the hook by the door. Stay here with Mrs. Ashford. Don't let anyone in. Garrett. Clara caught his arm. Be careful. Always am. He slipped outside, keeping low as he approached the main gate. Jonas Bergman stood there, arms crossed, blocking the path with his considerable bulk. Beyond him sat a man on horseback exactly as Eric had described. City clothes, expensive horse smile that didn't reach his eyes. Problem here? Garrett asked, stepping up beside Jonas. The stranger's gaze swept over him, pausing on the bandaged arm, the worn clothes, the gun at his hip. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Recognition. Interest. No problem at all. The man's voice was smooth, cultured, Eastern accent. I'm simply looking for a friend. A woman named Clara Ashford. Her family's worried about her. Never heard of her. Really? The stranger tilted his head. Because I was told she passed through this area about a week ago, heavily pregnant, traveling alone after her husband's unfortunate death. Jonas spoke up. We get lots of travelers through here. Can't remember everyone. Of course. The stranger smiled that empty smile. But surely you'd remember a pregnant woman. They're not exactly common on the frontier. Like I said. Garrett's hand rested on his gun. Never heard of her. The stranger's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then he laughed, a soft, chilling sound. My mistake, then. I must have received bad information. He tipped his hat. Gentlemen, I apologize for the intrusion. He turned his horse and rode away. Slow, unhurried, like a man who had all the time in the world. Garrett watched until he disappeared over the ridge. His gut churned. That man, Jonas said quietly. He wasn't just asking questions. No, he wasn't. You know him? No. Garrett turned back toward the house. But I know his type. Clara was waiting in the doorway, Samuel pressed against her chest, her face tight with fear. Who was he? Said he was looking for you, said your family's worried. I don't have family. Clara's voice shook. Not anymore. My father disowned me when I ran away with Thomas. My mother died years ago. There's no one. Then someone else wants to find you. Garrett guided her inside, closing the door firmly. Someone who knows your name and knows you're traveling. That's impossible. No one knows where I... She stopped. Color drained from her face. Thomas? What about him? The men who killed him. They kept asking about money. I told you that. But Thomas said something before they shot him. He said, I hid it. You'll never find it. I thought he was delirious trying to buy time. Her hands trembled. What if he wasn't? Garrett processed this. You're saying your husband hid something valuable enough to kill for. I don't know. I don't know anything. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. Thomas was a school teacher. He didn't have money. We barely had enough to make it to Oregon. Maybe Thomas wasn't who you thought he was. Clara's head snapped up. Don't you dare say that about him. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm saying maybe he had secrets. Things he didn't tell you to keep you safe. Thomas told me everything. Did he? Garrett kept his voice gentle. Did he tell you why those men came for him specifically? Did he tell you how they knew where to find you? Clara opened her mouth, closed it. Her face crumpled. No, she whispered. He didn't. Mrs. Bergman appeared in the doorway, her expression grave. I couldn't help overhearing. That man at the gate, he's trouble. We know, Garrett said. Then you know you can't stay here much longer. Mrs. Bergman's voice was kind but firm. I won't turn you out, but I've got 6 children to think about. If that man comes back with others... We understand. Clara wiped her eyes. We'll leave tomorrow. Tonight, Garrett corrected. We leave tonight. You're not healed? Doesn't matter. That man didn't believe a word we said. He'll be back, and he won't come alone. Clara looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Tonight. They spent the day preparing. Mrs. Bergman packed food more than they could carry, but she insisted. Jonas checked the horses and provided a second mount, refusing any payment. Consider it a loan, he said gruffly. You can return her when you're settled. As the sun began to set, Garrett pulled Clara aside. That man, the one at the gate, did anything about him seem familiar? No. Why? His voice. You said the men who killed Thomas had a leader, someone who spoke calm and cold. Clara's breath caught. You think? I think it's possible. I think whoever killed your husband is still looking for whatever Thomas hid, and I think they followed you here. But how I didn't tell anyone where I was going, I barely knew myself. Garrett thought about it. Thought about trails and tracks, and the ways men hunted other men. When they left you for dead, he said slowly, did you have anything on you? Papers, letters? Anything with writing? Just my bag, some clothes, a little money, my... She stopped. My journal. Where is it now? I still have it. I grabbed it when I ran. Clara. Garrett gripped her shoulders. What's in that journal? Nothing. Just personal things. Thoughts, memories. She frowned. And our travel route. Thomas and I planned it together. Every stop, every town mapped out all the way to Oregon. Garrett's blood ran cold. They didn't leave you for dead, he said. They let you go. What? They knew you had that journal. They knew you'd follow the route you'd planned. All they had to do was wait. His jaw tightened. They've been tracking you this whole time, Clara. Every farmhouse, every town, they've been one step behind, waiting for you to lead them to whatever Thomas hid. Clara swayed on her feet. Garrett caught her, holding her steady. But I don't know where anything is hidden. I don't know what they're looking for. They don't know that. They think you do. He pulled her close. That's why they haven't grabbed you yet. They're waiting for you to find it first. So, what do we do? Garrett thought about independence, about his contact there, about the new life he'd promised her. Then he thought about that man at the gate, that smooth voice, that predator's patience. Running wouldn't work, not anymore. These men wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted or until Clara was dead. We find it first, he said. Clara pulled back, staring at him. Find what I don't even know what it is. Then we figure it out. We retrace Thomas's steps, find out what he was hiding and why. Garrett met her eyes. And then we use it to end this. That's insane. You have a better idea. She didn't. He could see it in her face, the fear, the frustration, the desperate need to protect her son. There's something else, Clara said quietly. Something I didn't tell you. What? The night before Thomas died, we had a fight. Our first real fight since we left Boston. She hugged herself, her eyes distant. He wanted to stop in a town called Miller's Crossing. Said he had business there, someone he needed to see. But Miller's Crossing was miles off our route. It made no sense. Did he explain? He said it was important. Said everything depended on it. But when I pushed, he got angry. Told me to trust him. Clara's voice broke. The next morning we were attacked, and I never got to ask him again. Miller's Crossing. Garrett filed the name away. How far is it from here? 2 days, maybe 3. It's south toward Colorado. Then that's where we go. Garrett. Clara. He took her hands in his. I know you're scared. I know none of this makes sense. But that man at the gate, he ain't gonna stop. He'll keep coming, keep hunting until he gets what he wants. The only way to end this is to find out what Thomas was hiding and why. And if what he was hiding gets us killed, Then we go down fighting." Garrett's grip tightened. "But I'm betting whatever it is, it's worth more to us than it is to them. And I'm betting Thomas hid it for a reason to protect you." Clara was silent for a long moment. Garrett could see her thinking, weighing the options, calculating risks the way she always did. Finally, she nodded. "Miller's Crossing, but we do this my way." "Your way. I knew Thomas better than anyone. If he hid something, I'll recognize the signs. You handle the guns. I'll handle the clues." Despite everything, Garrett almost smiled. "Yes, ma'am." They left at midnight, slipping away, while the Bergman children slept. Mrs. Bergman pressed a bundle into Clara's hands at the door. "Baby clothes," she explained. Her youngest had outgrown them. "Be careful," she whispered. "Both of you." "Thank you." Clara embraced her. "For everything." They rode south, keeping to back trails and creek beds, avoiding the main roads. Garrett kept his rifle across his lap and his eyes on the darkness behind them. Samuel slept peacefully swaddled against Clara's chest, unaware of the danger surrounding him. "Tell me about Thomas," Garrett said after an hour of silence. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Where he came from, who his people were, how you met." Clara sighed. "We met in Boston. I was 18, daughter of a shipping merchant. Thomas was 23, working as a tutor for a family in our circle." A faint smile crossed her lips. "He was different from the other men I knew. Gentle. Idealistic. He believed people could be better than they were." "Sounds like a dreamer." "He was. That's what I loved about him." The smile faded. "But dreamers don't survive the frontier. I learned that the hard way." "Where was he from originally?" "Virginia. His family had money once before the war. His father lost everything in bad investments, then died of a heart attack. Thomas was left with nothing but his education." Virginia. Money. Bad investments. Garrett's instincts prickled. And he never mentioned anyone from his past old friends, business partners. No one. He said his old life was dead. Said the only thing that mattered was our future. Maybe his old life wasn't as dead as he thought. Clara fell silent. When she spoke again, her voice was small. "I keep thinking about that fight we had, the way he looked at me when I questioned him. I'd never seen that expression before, like he was terrified. Not of me, but of something else." She shook her head. What if he knew they were coming? What if Miller's Crossing was his way of protecting us? Then we find out what he was protecting you from. Dawn found them sheltered in an abandoned mine shaft, too exposed to travel during daylight. Clara nursed Samuel while Garrett kept watch at the entrance. "Garrett," her voice was soft. "What happens after?" "After what?" "After we find whatever Thomas hid. After we deal with these men." She looked up at him. "What happens to us?" It was a question he'd been avoiding. The answer scared him more than any gunfight. "What do you want to happen?" "I asked you first." Garrett turned from the entrance, meeting her eyes. She looked exhausted, dirty, beautiful, in a way that made his chest ache. "I want to stop running," he said honestly. "I want to find somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, and stay there. Build something. Be someone. With us. If you'll have me." Clara's eyes glistened. "You delivered my son in a blizzard. You killed men to protect us. You're here right now, riding into danger because of something my dead husband did." She stood crossing to him with Samuel in her arms. "Of course I'll have you, Garrett Sullivan. The question is whether you'll have us a widow with a baby and a dead man's secrets." Garrett reached out, touching her face, his rough fingers against her soft skin. "I'd have you if you had nothing," he said quietly. "I'd have you if the whole world was hunting us. Don't you know that by now?" Clara leaned into his touch. "Say it. I need to hear you say it." Say what? That you love me. The words had been building inside him for days. Maybe longer. Since the moment he'd placed Samuel in her arms, or the moment she'd pulled a bullet from his side, or the moment she'd shot a man to save his life. I love you, he said. Both of you. More than I knew I could love anything. Clara kissed him, not desperate like before, but slow and sweet and full of promise. I love you too, she whispered against his lips. Whatever happens in Miller's Crossing, whatever we find, that doesn't change. Nothing changes it. They stayed like that for a long moment, two people holding on to each other in the darkness, a sleeping baby between them. Then Garrett heard it. Hoofbeats. Distant but approaching. Get back! He pushed Clara deeper into the mine shaft. Stay quiet. He crouched at the entrance rifle ready. The hoofbeats grew louder. One rider, moving fast. The horse came into view, lathered, exhausted, clearly pushed hard. The rider was young, maybe 16, wearing clothes too big for his skinny frame. Not a threat, a messenger. The boy spotted the mine entrance and pulled up short. Hello? His voice cracked. Anyone there? I'm looking for a man named Sullivan. Garrett didn't move. Who wants to know? The boy nearly fell off his horse in surprise. You him? You Garrett Sullivan? Depends on who's asking. Man paid me to find you. Gave me a description. Tall, dark hair, travels with a woman and a baby. The boy fumbled in his saddlebag. Said to give you this. He held up an envelope. Garrett approached cautiously, took it, tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper with 3 words written in elegant script. I know everything. No signature. No explanation. But at the bottom, almost as an afterthought, was a location. Miller's Crossing. Midnight. 3 days. Who gave you this? Garrett demanded. Didn't say his name. City fellow, real well dressed. The boy shrugged. Paid me $10 just to deliver it. Said you'd know what it meant. The man from the gate. The hunter. He wasn't following them anymore. He was ahead of them. Get out of here, Garrett told the boy. Ride back the way you came and forget you ever saw us. The boy didn't need to be told twice. He wheeled his horse and disappeared into the morning mist. Clara emerged from the mine shaft, her face pale. It's a trap. I know. He wants us to come to Miller's Crossing. He's setting the terms. I know. So what do we do? Garrett looked at the note again. 3 words that changed everything. I know everything. If that was true, if this man really knew what Thomas had hidden, then running wouldn't help. Hiding wouldn't help. He'd find them eventually, no matter where they went. But if Garrett could get to Miller's Crossing first... We spring the trap, he said. What? He expects us to walk in blind. We don't. Garrett folded the note and tucked it into his pocket. We get there early, scout the town, find out who this man is and what he really wants. And then... Garrett checked his rifle, made sure it was loaded. Then we finish this. Clara stared at him for a long moment. He could see the fear in her eyes. Fear for herself, for Samuel, for him. But beneath the fear was something else. Steel. Together, she said. Together. They mounted their horses and rode south toward Miller's Crossing, toward answers, toward a reckoning 3 years in the making. Behind them the sun rose over the Wyoming wilderness. Ahead of them, a dead man's secrets waited to be found. And somewhere in between, a hunter was preparing his final trap. Miller's Crossing was smaller than Garrett expected. A handful of buildings clustered around a single muddy street, half of them boarded up and forgotten. The kind of town that had seen better days and knew it. They arrived at dusk 2 days ahead of the midnight meeting. Garrett left Clara and Samuel at a widow's boarding house on the edge of town, the safest place he could find on short notice, and went to scout. Be careful, Clara had said, gripping his hand. I'll be back before dark. He wasn't. By the time Garrett returned to the boarding house, night had fallen and Clara was pacing the small room like a caged animal. "Where were you?" she demanded. I found something." Clara stopped. "What?" Garrett pulled a folded paper from his coat. "There's a land office at the end of the street. Barely functional, but they keep records going back 20 years. I paid the clerk to let me look." "And Thomas Ashford bought property here, 6 months before you left Boston." Clara's face went pale. "That's impossible. We didn't have money for property. We barely had enough for the wagon." "The deed says otherwise." Garrett handed her the paper. 40 acres paid in full, cash. Clara stared at the document, her hands trembling. "I don't understand. Where would he get this kind of money? Why wouldn't he tell me? There's more." Garrett sat down heavily, his wounded arm throbbing. "The seller's name is on the deed, Victor Marsh." "I don't know that name." "You should. Victor Marsh was a senator from Virginia. Died 3 years ago under suspicious circumstances." Garrett paused. "His nephew was William Marsh, the man I was hunting when I killed Daniel." Clara's breath caught. "The senator, the one who put a price on your head." "The same. But what does that have to do with Thomas?" "I don't know yet, but I'm starting to think your husband and I were caught up in the same mess just from different angles." Clara sank onto the bed, still clutching the deed. Samuel stirred in his cradle but didn't wake. "Thomas never mentioned Virginia, never mentioned anyone named Marsh." Her voice cracked. "How many secrets did he keep from me?" "Maybe he was trying to protect you." "By lying. By hiding property purchases and connections to dead senators." Clara looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I thought I knew him, Garrett. I thought I knew everything about him. But this man, this stranger who bought land and kept secrets, I don't know him at all." Garrett knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "Whatever Thomas did, whatever he was hiding, it doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change what we have. How can you say that my dead husband might be connected to the people who want you dead? Then we figure it out together, like we promised." A knock at the door made them both freeze. Garrett drew his gun, motioning Clara behind him. He approached the door slowly. "Who's there?" "A friend." The voice was female, old. "I knew Thomas Ashford. I know why you're here." Garrett glanced at Clara. She nodded once. He opened the door. The woman on the other side was ancient, at least 70, bent with age, but sharp-eyed. She wore widow's black and leaned heavily on a cane. "You're the one Thomas sent for," she said, looking past Garrett to Clara. "The wife." "Who are you?" "Martha Crane, Thomas's aunt." The old woman pushed past Garrett into the room. "And if you want to survive the next 2 days, you'll listen to what I have to say." Clara's mouth fell open. "Thomas didn't have an aunt. His family was dead." "That's what he told you." Martha settled into the room's only chair with a heavy sigh. "Thomas told a lot of people a lot of things. Most of them weren't true." "Start talking," Garrett said, keeping his gun visible. "Fast." Martha looked at him with something like approval. "You're the bounty hunter, the one who killed Daniel Marsh." "I didn't mean—" "I know what you meant and what you didn't. Daniel was a fool who attacked the wrong man. But his death set off a chain of events that Thomas spent 3 years trying to stop." She turned to Clara. "Your husband wasn't a schoolteacher, my dear. Not really." "Then what was he?" "A thief." Martha's voice was flat. "The best one the Marsh family ever produced." Clara recoiled. "No, that's not. Thomas was gentle. He was kind. He couldn't—" "He could and he did. For years." Martha's expression softened slightly. "Before he met you, Thomas worked for Victor Marsh. The senator used him to steal documents, money secrets, anything that gave him power over his enemies. Thomas was good at it. Too good." "What changed?" "You changed him." Martha looked at Clara with something almost like warmth. "When Thomas met you, he wanted out. Wanted a real life. A family, a future. So he made a deal with Victor one last job, and then he was free. What job? Thomas stole $50,000 from Victor's private safe. Money the senator had been skimming from railroad contracts for years. Dirty money untraceable. Martha paused. But Thomas didn't deliver it. He hid it instead. Garrett's mind raced. $50,000. Enough to kill for. Enough to chase someone across half the country. Where? He demanded. Where did he hide it? That's the question, isn't it? Martha's eyes glittered. Thomas never told anyone. Not me. Not his contacts. Not even the men Victor sent to persuade him. He died without revealing the location. So the man hunting us, Victor's son, Edmund Marsh. Martha's voice turned hard. When Victor died, Edmund inherited everything, including his father's debts and enemies. He's been searching for that money for 3 years. It's the only thing keeping him alive. And he thinks Clara knows where it is. He thinks she's the key. Thomas loved her more than anything. If he hid that money for anyone, it was for her. Clara shook her head violently. I don't know anything. Thomas never told me about any of this. Maybe not directly. Martha leaned forward. But think, child. Think about your time together. The things he said, the places he took you, the gifts he gave. Thomas was clever. He wouldn't have hidden something that important without leaving a trail for the one person he trusted. Clara's hands twisted in her lap. Her face was a mask of confusion and grief. The journal, she whispered suddenly. What? My journal. Thomas gave it to me as a wedding gift. He said... She stopped, her eyes widening. He said it would guide me home if I ever got lost. Garrett grabbed the saddlebag from the corner and pulled out the worn leather journal. He handed it to Clara. Show me. Clara's fingers trembled as she opened the book. Page after page of her own handwriting, thoughts, memories, travel notes. Nothing unusual. Then she reached the back cover. There's something here. She ran her fingers along the leather. It feels different. Thicker. Garrett pulled out his knife. May I? Clara nodded. He cut carefully along the edge of the back cover. Hidden beneath the leather was a folded piece of paper yellowed with age. Clara unfolded it with shaking hands. It's a map, she breathed. Hand-drawn. There's a location marked. She looked up at Martha. Is this it? Is this where Thomas hid the money? Martha smiled, a thin, satisfied expression. Clever boy. He knew you'd find it eventually. Where is this place? Garrett studied the map. I don't recognize any landmarks. The old Marsh mining claim, Martha said. Abandoned for 20 years. It's about 5 miles east of here, up in the hills. So we go there, get the money, and use it to buy Edmund off. It won't work. Martha shook her head. Edmund doesn't want the money, not really. He wants revenge. Thomas humiliated his father, made a fool of the great Victor Marsh. Edmund won't stop until everyone connected to that betrayal is dead. Then what do we do? Martha rose slowly, leaning on her cane. You give Edmund what he wants. We just established that won't work. Not the money. Martha's eyes locked with Garrett's. You give him Thomas's killer. Clara gasped. Thomas was killed by bandits. Was he? Martha's voice was sharp. Think about it, girl. Random bandits who knew exactly where to find you, who asked about money Thomas supposedly didn't have, who killed him, execution style, while you conveniently survived. The blood drained from Clara's face. You're saying Edmund hired those men. He's been orchestrating this from the beginning. Martha moved toward the door. He killed Thomas to punish him. Now he's using you to find the money. And when he has what he wants, he'll kill you too. Then why tell us any of this? Garrett demanded. What do you gain? Martha paused at the door. Thomas was my nephew, the only family I had left. Edmund took him from me. Her voice hardened. I want him to pay, and you two are the only ones who can make that happen. She slipped out into the night, leaving silence behind her. Clara sat motionless, the map clutched in her hands. Garrett. Her voice was barely a whisper. Thomas was murdered. Edmund killed him. We don't know that for certain. Yes, we do. Tears streamed down her face. It makes sense now, all of it. The way they knew exactly where to find us. The way they asked about money we didn't have. The way they... She choked. They made me watch. They wanted me to see what happened to people who crossed them. Garrett pulled her into his arms, holding her tight as sobs racked her body. Samuel woke and began to cry, but neither of them moved. I'll kill him, Garrett said quietly. Edmund, for what he did to Thomas, for what he's done to you. No, Clara pulled back, wiping her face. No, that's what he wants. That's what he's always wanted, to draw us out, make us emotional, make us stupid. Then what do you suggest? Clara looked at the map in her hands, then at Samuel crying in his cradle, then at Garrett. We use his own trap against him, she said slowly. He wants the money, fine. We lead him to it, but on our terms. How? The meeting is set for midnight 2 days from now. He expects us to walk in blind. Clara's jaw set with determination. Instead, we get to the mining claim first. We find the money, and when Edmund shows up, we're ready for him. That's a lot of assumptions. What if the money isn't there? What if Martha's playing us? Then we're no worse off than we are now. Clara stood, moving to comfort Samuel. But if there's even a chance we can end this, protect our son, build a life together, I have to take it. Garrett watched her lift Samuel from the cradle, watched her soothe him with gentle words and softer touches. This woman who'd survived so much, who'd lost everything and kept going. He'd never loved anyone the way he loved her. All right, he said. We do it your way. But if things go wrong, they won't. If they do, he pressed, you take Samuel and you run. No arguments, no looking back. Clara met his eyes. Only if you promise me the same thing. Clara. Promise me, Garrett. If something happens to me, you get our son to safety. You raise him. You give him the life I can't. Our son. The words hit him like a fist to the chest. He's not mine. He's whoever we say he is. Clara crossed to him, placing Samuel in his arms. You delivered him. You protected him. You love him. That makes him yours as much as mine. Garrett looked down at the baby, those blue eyes, that tiny nose, the way his fingers curled around Garrett's thumb. His son. I promise, he said roughly. But you're not going anywhere. You hear me? We finish this together, and then we spend the rest of our lives boring each other to death on some quiet farm somewhere. Clara laughed through her tears. That sounds perfect. They spent the night planning. By dawn, they had a strategy, fragile, dangerous, but better than nothing. Garrett would go to the mining claim alone, first scout the area, find the money if it existed. Clara would stay hidden in town with Samuel out of Edmund's reach. I don't like this, Clara said as he prepared to leave. You going alone? I'll be back before nightfall. You said that yesterday. I mean it this time. He kissed her deep, thorough, trying to memorize the taste of her. Keep your gun close. Don't open the door for anyone. Garrett. She caught his arm. Whatever you find out there, whatever Thomas really was, it doesn't change how I feel about you. You know that, right? I know. And if the money's there, if it's real, it's yours. All of it. Thomas meant it for you. Clara shook her head. It's ours. All three of us. We're a family now, remember? Family. The word still felt foreign on his tongue. But looking at Clara, looking at Samuel, it felt right. I remember, he said. I'll always remember. The ride to the mining claim took 2 hours. Garrett followed Martha's directions, winding through narrow passes and overgrown trails until he reached a collapsed entrance marked with a faded sign. The mine itself was a death trap. Rotting supports, unstable tunnels, the smell of decay heavy in the air. But Thomas had been clever. The money wasn't in the mine, it was behind it. A small cabin hidden by brush and rock, practically invisible unless you knew where to look. Inside, beneath a loose floorboard, Garrett found a leather satchel. $50,000. More money than he'd ever seen in his life. He was counting it when he heard the click of a gun being cocked behind him. "That belongs to me," said a smooth, familiar voice. Garrett turned slowly. Edmund Marsh stood in the doorway, pistol raised, that same cold smile on his face. "You're early," Garrett said. "So are you." Edmund stepped inside. "I knew you'd come. A man like you can't resist being the hero. It's your fatal flaw." "Where's Clara?" "Safe. For now." Edmund's smile widened. "My men picked her up an hour ago. She put up quite a fight, actually. Impressive woman." Garrett's blood turned to ice. "If you hurt her." "She's leverage, not a target. As long as you cooperate, she and the baby stay breathing." Edmund gestured with his pistol. "Now step away from the money." Garrett didn't move. "This isn't about money. Martha told us everything." "Ah, Martha." Edmund sighed. "Dear old Aunt Martha. I should have killed her years ago. You murdered Thomas. You hired those men to execute him. Thomas betrayed my father, stole from him, humiliated him. Death was too good for him, really." Edmund's voice turned vicious. "But watching his precious wife suffer, watching her run and hide and slowly lose her mind with fear, that was satisfying. You're insane. I'm practical." Edmund leveled the gun at Garrett's chest. "Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me that money, and then you're going to walk out of here and disappear. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. Never contact Clara again." "And if I don't?" "Then I kill you now and take the money anyway. Clara dies. The baby dies. Everyone loses." Garrett's mind raced. Edmund was 10 feet away. Too far to rush without getting shot. His rifle was by the door, useless, but his knife was in his boot. If he could get Edmund talking, keep him distracted. "How did you find us?" Garrett asked, buying time. "At the Bergman farm." "Clara's journal. We've been tracking her route since she left the ditch we dumped her in." Edmund smirked. "Predictable, really. She followed Thomas's plan like a good little wife." "And the note, the midnight meeting?" "A test. I wanted to see if you'd come early, scout the area, find the money. Saves me the trouble of searching." Edmund gestured impatiently. "Enough talk. The money. Now." Garrett bent slowly, reaching for the satchel. His hand closed around his boot knife instead. He threw it in one fluid motion, years of practice making the move automatic. The blade buried itself in Edmund's shoulder. Edmund screamed, his shot going wide. Garrett was on him before he could recover, grabbing the gun, slamming Edmund's head against the cabin wall. "Where is she?" Garrett pressed the barrel against Edmund's temple. "Where's Clara?" "Go to hell." Garrett cocked the hammer. "Wrong answer." "You won't shoot me. You're not a killer." "I killed Daniel Marsh. I killed Cole Braddock. You want to test me?" Fear flickered in Edmund's eyes. Real fear. "The old church," he gasped. "South end of town. My men have her there." "How many men?" "3. Maybe 4. "If you're lying." "I'm not. I swear." Garrett hit him. Hard. Edmund crumpled unconscious to the floor. He grabbed the satchel, grabbed his rifle, and ran for his horse. Clara. Samuel. He had to reach them. He pushed the horse harder than he ever had, flying down the mountain, barely staying in the saddle. Every second felt like an eternity. Every heartbeat screamed her name. The old church came into view, crumbling, abandoned, exactly where Edmund said. Garrett dismounted before the horse fully stopped. He approached the building, low and fast, rifle ready. Voices inside, male, rough. "Don't know why we're keeping her alive anyway. Edmund's got what he wanted. He said wait, we wait. What about the kid thing won't stop crying? Let it cry, not our problem. Garrett counted the voices. 3. Edmund had been telling the truth. He kicked down the door. The first man died before he could turn around. The second managed to draw his weapon. Garrett shot him through the chest. The third grabbed Clara, using her as a shield gun pressed to her head. "Drop it!" the man screamed. "Drop it, or I blow her brains out." Garrett froze. Clara's eyes met his, terrified but alert. Samuel was crying somewhere behind her. "Okay." Garrett lowered his rifle slowly. "Okay, let's talk about this." "Nothing to talk about. You killed my partners. And I'll kill you too if you hurt her. You won't risk it, not with her head in my sights." Garrett's mind raced. The man was twitchy nervous, more dangerous because of it. One wrong move and Clara was dead. Then he saw it. Clara's hand hidden behind her back fingers moving. She was counting down. 3, 2, 1. Clara threw her elbow back into the man's stomach. He doubled over his gun, swinging wide. Garrett fired. The bullet caught the man between the eyes. Clara collapsed to her knees, gasping. Garrett was beside her in an instant, gathering her into his arms. "Are you hurt? Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine. Samuel. I'll get him." Garrett found the baby in a corner, crying but unharmed. He scooped Samuel up and brought him to Clara. "He's okay," Garrett said. "He's okay. You're both okay." Clara clutched her son, sobbing with relief. "I thought when they took me, I thought I'd never see you again. I promised you together. I meant it." Edmund, unconscious at the mining claim. "We need to move before he wakes up." Clara nodded, wiping her face. "The money." Garrett held up the satchel. "Every dollar. Thomas kept his promise after all." "So now what?" "Now we end this." Garrett helped her to her feet. "Edmund's men are dead. He's alone. This is our chance." "To do what?" "To make him answer for what he did. To Thomas, to you, to everyone he's hurt." Clara's expression hardened. "I want to be there. When you confront him, I want him to see me." "Clara, he killed my husband. He tried to destroy my family. I have the right to look him in the eye." Garrett wanted to argue, wanted to protect her from any more violence, any more pain. But she'd earned this. She'd fought for it. "All right," he said. "Together." They rode back to the mining claim as the sun began to set. Edmund was still unconscious where Garrett had left him. Clara stood over his prone form. Samuel held tight against her chest. "Wake him up," she said. Garrett dumped his canteen over Edmund's face. The man sputtered, groaned, opened his eyes, and saw Clara looking down at him. "You," he spat. "You're supposed to be dead sorry to disappoint." Clara's voice was ice. "Your men are gone, Edmund. All of them. It's over." "It's never over. You think you can just—" "I think I can do whatever I want." Clara knelt, bringing her face close to his. "You killed Thomas. You hunted me. You threatened my son. And for what money, pride? Your husband was a thief, a traitor. He deserved better than you." Clara stood. "So do I." She turned to Garrett. "Is the law in this town worth anything? There's a sheriff, old man, mostly retired. But he'll listen. Then we turn him over. Let the law decide what happens." Edmund laughed, a desperate, ugly sound. "The law. You think any court in this territory will convict a Marsh? My family owns judges, owns politicians. I'll be free in a week." "Maybe." Clara's smile was cold. "But I have $50,000 now. Enough to hire the best lawyers in the country. Enough to make sure your trial is public, messy, and very, very long." She paused. "How do you think your family's reputation will survive that?" Edmund's face went pale. "Think about it," Clara continued. "Every newspaper in America covering your arrest. Your father's crimes exposed. The Marsh name dragged through the mud. She leaned close. That's what you're afraid of, isn't it? Not prison. Shame. You wouldn't. Watch me. For the first time, Edmund looked truly afraid. Clara straightened. Garrett, let's go find that sheriff. They left Edmund tied and guarded with strict instructions for the sheriff to hold him until proper authorities could arrive from Denver. As they rode back to the boarding house, Clara leaned against Garrett's chest, Samuel sleeping peacefully between them. Is it really over? She asked quietly. The hard part is, Garrett kissed the top of her head. Now comes the easy part. What's that? Living. Clara laughed softly. I don't remember how to do that. Neither do I. But we'll figure it out together. Together, she agreed. I like the sound of that. The stars appeared overhead bright and endless. Somewhere in the distance a coyote howled. And for the first time in longer than either could remember, the future felt possible. The sheriff of Miller's Crossing was a man named Hiram Boggs, 60 years old, half-deaf, and meaner than a rattlesnake when provoked. He listened to their story in silence, his weathered face unreadable. So let me understand this, he said when they finished. You're telling me Edmund Marsh, son of the late Senator Victor Marsh, murdered a man, hired killers, and hunted this woman across 3 territories. That's exactly what I'm telling you, Garrett replied. And you have proof. Clara stepped forward. I have his own admission. He confessed to orchestrating my husband's death. He confessed to hunting me. Any witnesses? Just me and Garrett. Sheriff Boggs rubbed his jaw. The Marsh family has powerful friends, lawyers who make men like me disappear. Then don't make it about the Marsh family. Clara's voice was steady. Make it about justice. Make it about a woman who lost her husband and a child who will never know his father. The old sheriff studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to Garrett. You're the bounty hunter, the one with the price on his head. I am. Senator Marsh put that bounty on you. The same Senator Marsh whose son is sitting in my jail. Boggs almost smiled. Seems to me there might be room for negotiation. What kind of negotiation? The kind where Edmund Marsh faces a proper trial and you get your name cleared. Boggs stood, joints popping. I know a judge in Denver. Honest man, which is rare in these parts. He's been looking for a reason to go after the Marsh family for years. Why would he help us? Because Victor Marsh destroyed his brother's career over a business dispute. Judge Harmon has a long memory and a longer grudge. Boggs picked up his hat. I'll send a telegram tonight. Should have an answer by morning. After he left, Clara turned to Garrett. Do you trust him? I trust that he hates the Marsh family. That's enough for now. And if the judge doesn't help, if Edmund's lawyers get him released. Garrett pulled her close. Then we disappear. New names, new town, new life. Edmund can't hunt what he can't find. I'm tired of running. So am I. He kissed her forehead. But I'll do whatever it takes to keep you and Samuel safe, even if that means running forever. Clara shook her head. No. We end this here, one way or another. The answer from Denver came faster than expected. Judge Harmon was not only interested, he was eager. Within a week, federal marshals arrived in Miller's Crossing to take Edmund Marsh into custody. The trial would be held in Denver, it would be public, and it would expose everything the Marsh family had tried to hide. You'll need to testify, the lead marshal told Clara. Both of you. We'll be there, Clara promised. As they watched Edmund being loaded into a prison wagon, the man's eyes found Clara through the bars. Pure hatred burned in his gaze. This isn't over, he called. You hear me? This will never be over. Clara walked to the wagon close enough that the guards tensed. You're wrong, she said quietly. It's already over. You just don't know it yet. She turned her back on him and walked away. Garrett fell into step beside her, Samuel sleeping peacefully in his arms. That was brave, he said. That was necessary. Clara took a shaky breath. I needed him to see that I'm not afraid anymore. Are you afraid? She thought about it. No, not of him. Not anymore. What are you afraid of? Clara stopped walking, turning to face him fully. I'm afraid of what comes next. Of building a life and having it taken away again. Of loving someone and losing them. Her voice cracked. I'm afraid that this us is too good to be real. Garrett set Samuel down carefully in a nearby basket, then took Clara's face in his hands. I'm real. This is real, and I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that. No one can. You're right. I can't promise I won't die. Can't promise the world won't throw more trouble our way. He wiped a tear from her cheek. But I can promise that as long as I'm breathing, I'll fight for you. For Samuel. For this family we're building. Is that what we are? A family? What else would you call it? Clara managed a watery smile. I don't know. I've never had one that worked before. Neither have I. But I figure we can learn together. She kissed him, then not desperate like their first kiss, but deep and true and full of promise. Okay, she whispered against his lips. Let's learn together. They traveled to Denver for the trial. The journey took 5 days, and every mile felt like a step toward something new. Clara watched the landscape change outside the stagecoach window, Samuel sleeping in her lap. Garrett sat across from her, his long legs stretched out, his eyes never straying far from her face. What? She asked when she caught him staring. Just thinking. About what you said. About being afraid this is too good to be real. He leaned forward. I've spent 3 years waiting for the other boot to drop. Waiting for someone to take everything away. And now? Now I'm tired of waiting. I want to live, really live, with you. Clara felt her heart swell. What does that look like? Living. A house. A real one, not a cabin or a boarding room. Somewhere with space for Samuel to run around when he's older. Garrett's voice softened. Maybe more children if you want. A garden. Neighbors who know our names. That sounds like a dream. Dreams are just plans you haven't made yet. Clara laughed. When did you become a philosopher? Somewhere between delivering your baby and falling in love with you. Garrett Sullivan. She shook her head, smiling. You are full of surprises. I try. Denver was larger than any town Clara had seen since leaving Boston. The noise, the crowds, the constant motion, it overwhelmed her after months of wilderness and small settlements. But the trial itself was what truly shook her. For 3 days, she sat in a packed courtroom and listened to the crimes of the Marsh family laid bare. Witnesses came forward, former employees, business partners, even a few politicians who'd decided to save themselves by betraying their patrons. Edmund Marsh sat at the defense table, his expensive lawyers working desperately to spin the evidence. But there was too much, too many voices telling the same story. When Clara took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. Mrs. Ashford, the prosecutor began, please tell the court about the day your husband was killed. Clara's hands trembled, but her voice was steady. We were 3 days from Miller's Crossing. Thomas wanted to stop, said he had business there. I didn't understand why. She paused. The next morning, men rode into our camp. Their leader asked Thomas about money. Thomas said he didn't know what they were talking about. And then, they shot him. Clara's voice broke. They made me watch. Then they left me in a ditch to die. Did you recognize any of the men? No. But I recognized the voice, the leader's voice. Clara looked directly at Edmund. I heard it again at the Bergman farmstead when that man came asking about me. Let the record show that Mrs. Ashford has identified the defendant's voice, the prosecutor said. Edmund's lawyer jumped up. Objection. Voice identification is unreliable. Overruled. Judge Harmon's voice was cold. The witness may continue. Clara told the rest of her story: the cabin, the birth, Garrett's arrival, their flight, and eventual confrontation with Edmund. When she finished, tears streamed down her face, but she held her head high. "Mrs. Ashford," the prosecutor said gently, "do you have anything else to add?" Clara looked at Edmund one last time. "My husband made mistakes. He lied to me, kept secrets, did things I'll never fully understand. But he didn't deserve to die. And my son—" Her voice hardened. "My son didn't deserve to grow up without a father because a powerful man couldn't accept that someone had outsmarted him." The courtroom erupted. Judge Harmon banged his gavel, calling for order. Clara stepped down from the witness stand on shaking legs. Garrett was waiting at the back of the courtroom. He caught her as she nearly collapsed. "You did it," he murmured. "It's over." "Is it? Look at the jury." Clara turned. 12 men sat in the jury box, their faces grim and decided. Not a single one would meet Edmund's eyes. "It's over," Garrett repeated. "He's finished." The verdict came the next day. Guilty on all counts. Edmund Marsh was sentenced to hang. Clara stood outside the courthouse, Samuel in her arms, Garrett beside her. Reporters shouted questions. Onlookers gawked, but she heard none of it. "How do you feel?" Garrett asked quietly. "Empty." She shook her head. "I thought I'd feel satisfied, vindicated, but all I feel is tired." "That's grief. It doesn't go away just because the person who caused it is punished." "Does it ever go away?" "No, but it gets easier to carry." Garrett took her hand. "Let's get out of here. Find somewhere quiet." They found a small hotel on the outskirts of Denver, clean, simple, far from the circus of the trial. That night, after Samuel was asleep, Clara sat by the window, watching the city lights. "Garrett." He looked up from the gun he was cleaning. "Yeah." "What happens now? Really? Now we decide where we want to go, who we want to be." He set the gun aside. "The bounty on my head is gone. Judge Harmon saw to that. Edmund's lawyers tried to use it against me, but Harmon ruled the original charges were fraudulent." "So you're free." "We're free." Garrett crossed to her. "No more running, no more hiding. We can go anywhere. Be anyone." "I don't want to be anyone." Clara looked up at him. "I want to be yours." Garrett knelt before her, taking her hands. "Clara Ashford, I've got nothing to offer you but a bad reputation, a good horse, and a love so deep it scares me sometimes." His voice roughened. "But if you'll have me, if you'll let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you, I swear I'll never give you reason to regret it." "Are you proposing—" "I'm begging." Clara laughed through sudden tears. "Yes. Yes. Yes, Garrett Sullivan, I'll marry you." He kissed her long and deep and full of promise, then pulled back with a grin she'd never seen before. "I was hoping you'd say that." "Were you?" He reached into his pocket and produced a ring, simple gold band, slightly tarnished, clearly old. "It was my mother's," he explained. "I've been carrying it for 3 years, waiting for someone worth giving it to." Clara let him slide it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "How did you know—" "Know what?" "That I'd say yes." Garrett smiled. "I didn't. But I figured after everything we've been through, you'd at least give me a chance." "A chance?" Clara shook her head. "You saved my life. You delivered my son. You fought for me when you had every reason to walk away." She cupped his face in her hands. "You've already proven yourself 100 times over, Garrett. This isn't a chance. This is a certainty." They were married 2 weeks later in a small church outside Denver. The ceremony was simple, just a handful of witnesses, including Judge Harmon and Sheriff Boggs, who'd made the journey specifically for the occasion. Clara wore a blue dress she'd bought with some of Thomas's money. Garrett wore a new suit that fit him poorly, but made Clara smile every time she looked at him. Samuel slept through most of the ceremony, waking only when the minister pronounced them husband and wife. "You may kiss the bride," the minister said. Garrett pulled Clara close. "Ready to start our life, Mrs. Sullivan." "I've been ready since you kicked down that cabin door." The kiss was witnessed by a crying Judge Harmon, a stoic Sheriff Boggs, and a baby who would grow up never remembering a time when Garrett Sullivan wasn't his father. They settled in a town called Cedar Falls, small enough to know your neighbors, large enough to have a proper school and a doctor. Garrett bought 40 acres of good land with the money Clara insisted they share, and spent the first month building a house with his own hands. "It's not fancy," he said when he finally showed it to her, "but it's solid, warm, ours." Clara walked through the rooms, slowly running her fingers along the rough-hewn walls. A kitchen, a parlor, 2 bedrooms, one for them, one for Samuel. "It's perfect," she said. "You haven't seen the best part." He led her to the back, where a small addition jutted from the main structure. "I figured you might want your own space, for writing or reading or just being alone when Samuel's driving you crazy." Garrett rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly uncertain. "If you don't like it, I can—" Clara silenced him with a kiss. "I love it. I love you. I love this life we're building. Even though it's nothing like what you planned. Nothing like Oregon." Oregon was Thomas's dream. Clara took his hand, placing it over her heart. "This is mine." The first year was hard. Winter came early and stayed late. The crops struggled. Garrett picked up work where he could find it, breaking horses, mending fences, even a brief stint as a deputy when the sheriff broke his leg. But they survived. More than survived, they thrived. Clara started teaching reading to the children of neighboring farms, using the skills she'd learned assisting Thomas all those years ago. Word spread. Soon she had a regular class of 8 students meeting in her parlor twice a week. "You're a natural," Garrett observed one evening, watching her prepare lessons by lamplight. "I had a good teacher. Thomas. You." Clara looked up with a smile. "You taught me that starting over doesn't mean giving up. It means finding a new way forward." Spring brought new life to the farm and to their family. Clara told Garrett she was pregnant on a morning in early April when the first wildflowers were pushing through the frost. "You're sure?" His voice cracked. "I'm sure." Garrett pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might break, and never wanting to let go. "I'm scared," he admitted against her hair. "Of what?" "Of being a father. A real one from the beginning." He pulled back, his eyes wet. "What if I'm no good at it? What if I'm like my father was? Garrett." Clara touched his face. "You've been Samuel's father from the moment you caught him in your hands. You walk the floors with him when he cries. You sing him songs. You hold him like he's the most precious thing in the world." "He is. You both are." "Then you already know how to be a father. The rest is just practice." Samuel took his first steps on a warm June afternoon, lurching across the kitchen floor toward Garrett with determination written on his tiny face. "That's it, buddy." Garrett held out his hands. "Come to Papa." Papa. The word still made his chest tight every time he heard it. Samuel reached him and grabbed his fingers, laughing with triumph. Clara watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "Our son," she said softly. "Our son." Garrett agreed. That night, with Samuel asleep and the summer stars bright overhead, Garrett and Clara sat on their porch in comfortable silence. "Do you ever think about before?" Clara asked. "About the cabin, the storm?" "Sometimes." "What do you think about—" Garrett was quiet for a moment. "I think about how close I came to passing it by. How tired I was, how hurt. Part of me just wanted to keep riding, find somewhere to die in peace." "What stopped you?" "The light. Your fire shining through the storm." He took her hand. "Something told me to follow it, to go toward the light instead of away from it." "Do you believe it was fate?" "I don't know what I believe, but I know I'm grateful. Every single day, I'm grateful." Clara leaned against his shoulder. Me too. Even with everything that happened, Thomas Edmund, the running and the fighting and the fear. Because of everything that happened. Clara lifted her head, meeting his eyes. If Thomas hadn't died, I never would have met you. If Edmund hadn't hunted us, we never would have found the truth. If we hadn't fought, we wouldn't know how strong we could be. That's a hard way to find happiness. Maybe, but it's ours. She kissed him softly. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Autumn brought the trial's final chapter. Edmund Marsh was executed on a gray October morning. Clara didn't attend, but Garrett went partly to be certain it was over, partly to bear witness to the end of a story that had shaped both their lives. When he returned, Clara was waiting on the porch with Samuel in her arms. Is it done? It's done. How do you feel? Garrett climbed the steps slowly, his face unreadable. I thought I'd feel something, he said. Satisfaction, relief, closure. He shook his head. Instead, I just feel sad. Sad. For the waste of it all. Edmund was raised to hate, to scheme, to destroy. He never had a chance to be anything else. Garrett looked at Samuel. Our son won't grow up that way. We'll make sure of it. Yes. We will. Winter came again, their second in the house Garrett built. Clara's pregnancy was progressing well, and the doctor predicted a spring baby. On Christmas Eve, they gathered around the fire with Samuel, now walking confidently and babbling words that almost made sense. Garrett had carved a set of wooden animals for him. Clara had knitted a tiny sweater. This time last year, Clara said softly, I was alone in a cabin praying for a miracle. And I was bleeding in the snow, convinced I was going to die. Look at us now. Garrett pulled her close, careful of her growing belly. Look at us now. Samuel toddled over, demanding to be included in the embrace. Garrett scooped him up with one arm while keeping the other around Clara. My family, he said, his voice rough with emotion. My whole world right here. Papa, Samuel said clearly. Garrett's breath caught. That's right, buddy. Papa. And Mama. And pretty soon a little brother or sister. More, Samuel said, pointing at Clara's stomach. Clara laughed through her tears. That's right, sweet boy. More. Always more. The baby came in late March, a daughter they named Grace for the unexpected gift she represented. She had Clara's eyes and Garrett's stubborn chin, and from her first breath she had both parents wrapped around her tiny finger. She's beautiful, Garrett whispered, holding her for the first time. She's ours. Ours. He looked from Grace to Samuel to Clara, his heart so full it hurt. I don't deserve this. Stop, Clara gripped his arm. You deserve every bit of it, every joy, every laugh, every peaceful moment. But the things I've done are in the past, where they belong. Clara touched his face. You're a good man, Garrett Sullivan, the best man I've ever known. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you believe it. Years passed. Samuel grew tall and strong with a quick mind and his mother's determination. Grace became the light of every room she entered, charming neighbors and strangers alike with her father's crooked smile. More children followed, a second son they named Thomas, after the man who had unknowingly brought them together, and twin girls who kept everyone on their toes. Cedar Falls grew around them, becoming a proper town with a school, a church, and a main street lined with shops. Clara eventually became the head teacher, beloved by generations of students who passed through her classroom. Garrett served 3 terms as sheriff, cleaning up the rough elements that threatened their peaceful community. He hung up his gun at 50, content to spend his remaining years farming the land he'd built from nothing. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a celebration that brought the whole town out. There were speeches and toasts and enough food to feed an army. But the moment Garrett treasured most came after, when the guests had gone home and the children had settled, and he and Clara sat on their porch watching the sunset like they had 1,000 times before. 25 years, Clara said. Can you believe it? Some days it feels like yesterday. Other days it feels like we've always been together. Do you ever regret it? Any of it? Garrett turned to look at her. This woman who had been his salvation, his partner, his greatest adventure. Her hair was silver now, her face lined with years of laughter and love. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Not a single moment, he said. Not one. Clara smiled that smile he'd first seen by firelight in a frozen cabin when she'd held their son for the first time, and everything had changed. Neither do I. She leaned into his shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her, and together they watched the sun sink below the horizon. 25 years ago, a wounded outlaw had kicked down a cabin door and found a woman giving birth alone in a blizzard. He'd delivered her baby with hands that had killed men. He'd promised to protect them both, not knowing if he could keep that promise. He had kept it, every single day, and he would keep it for all the days that remained. That was the story Garrett Sullivan told his grandchildren years later, when they gathered at his knee and begged to hear how he and Grandma had met. He told them about the storm and the cabin and the baby who wouldn't cry. He told them about wolves and hunters and a fortune buried in a forgotten mine. But mostly, he told them about love, about finding it in the most unexpected places, about fighting for it when the world tried to take it away, about building something beautiful from broken pieces and holding on to it with everything you had. Is it true? His oldest granddaughter asked. All of it. Garrett looked at Clara sitting in her rocking chair by the fire, their life together written in the comfortable silence between them. Every word, he said. Every single word. Clara caught his eye and smiled. After all these years, that smile still made his heart skip. Some promises once made are never broken, and some loves once found last forever.